Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my 2024-2025 NFL playoff predictions. So, last week, in Week 18, I had a record of 11-5, and that brings my record on the season to 189-83. Kicking things off in the wild card round in the AFC, we have the Chargers against the Texans. So, this is a very interesting game. The Chargers, they're 11-6, and they enter the playoffs on a good note, having won their last three games. And they'll face a Texans team that is pretty good, but played in a very easy division. The Chargers offense is scoring 23.6 points per game, and they face the Texans defense that's pretty good, allowing 21.9 points per game. And on the flip side, the Texans offense is having a pretty disappointing season, as they're scoring 21.9 points per game, and they've also struggled to protect the quarterback, allowing 54 sacks this year, which is tied for third most in the NFL. But then they'll face an elite Chargers defense that is the league's top scoring defense, allowing 17.7 points per game. Plus, they have a great pass rush, as they have 46 sacks on the season, which ranks 6th. But I do have the Chargers getting the win here. I think their offense will have a solid game. I don't think the Texans will be able to do enough offensively against a good defense. And I've got the Chargers beating the Texans and advancing to the divisional round with a 21-13 win. Next game, we have the Steelers at the Ravens. So this is another really interesting matchup. The Steelers, they're 10-7, and they enter the postseason on a 4-game losing streak, but they've had success against the Ravens, as the Steelers, they've won 8 of the last 10 meetings, although the Ravens did beat the Steelers a few weeks ago. Another thing that's interesting is Lamar Jackson has not been the greatest in his career against the Steelers, with 8 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Plus, he's just 2-4 in the playoffs, and in his playoff games, he has 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So that makes this game very interesting. But the Ravens' offense is great. They're third in the NFL, scoring 30.5 points per game, although the Ravens will be without receiver Zay Flowers. And then a matchup against a Steelers defense that is good, allowing 20.4 points per game, which ranks 8th best in the NFL. Then on the flip side, the Steelers are scoring 22.4 points a game, although on their 4-game losing streak, they're averaging just 14 points per game. And the Steelers, they face a Ravens defense that is allowing 21.2 points per game, and the Ravens defense has actually been playing extremely well as of late, allowing just 15.4 points per game in their last 7 games. But I am going to take the Ravens to get the win here. I think their offense continues to play well. I think their defense continues to play well against a struggling Steelers offense. And I've got the Ravens advancing by a score of 30-17. Moving on, we have the Broncos at the Bills. So this is a matchup that you look at and say the 2 seed versus 7 seed probably won't be the greatest game. But I actually think this could be a pretty good matchup, because you have an elite Bills offense against a very good Broncos defense. As the Bills, they're the second best scoring offense in the NFL, scoring 30.9 points per game. And they face a Broncos defense that is third in the NFL, allowing 18.3 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Broncos have a pretty underrated offense, as they're scoring 25 points per game, and the Bills' defense is allowing 21.6 points per game. Now, I am going to take the Bills to get the win. They're the better overall team, and they're home, but I definitely think the Broncos can make this very close, and I think it'll be a pretty close game, but I've got the Bills by a score of 26-23. Moving on to the NFC divisional or wildcard round, and that is the Vikings at the Rams. Now, this game is currently set to be played in LA, although there's a chance it gets moved to Arizona with the current wildfires in California, and obviously I hope everyone is okay there. But the Vikings, they're 14-3, and they're coming off a really bad showing against the Lions, where they didn't score a touchdown. Now, the thing that makes this even more interesting is the Rams actually beat the Vikings earlier this season, winning 30-20 back in Week 8. But the Vikings' offense is good, scoring 25.4 points per game, although they were awful last week with just 9 points. And then they'll face a Rams defense that is solid, allowing 22.7 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Rams are scoring 21.6 points a game, and they face a great Vikings defense that is 5th best in the NFL, allowing 19.5 points per game. But even though the Vikings lost to the Rams earlier in the season, and they looked awful last week, I'm still going to take them to get the win. I think their offense is a bounce back game, and I think their defense is a big factor in this game as well. And I've got the Vikings getting the win here by a score of 24-16. Moving on, we have the Commanders at the Buccaneers. So this should be a really fun game, as we have 2 top 5 offenses in this game. The Commanders, they're 5th in the NFL, scoring 28.5 points per game, and the Buccaneers' defense is okay, allowing 22.6 points per game. And then on the other side, the Buccaneers' offense is the 4th best scoring offense, putting up 29.5 points a game, and the Commanders' defense is okay, allowing 23 points per game. But this is going to be a great game. I think both offenses will play well because both offenses are great and both defenses are nothing special. I definitely think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the wild card round, and I'm going to take the Buccaneers to get the win. They're home, and even though Jaden Daniels has been great as a rookie, I trust Baker Mayfield as he finished top 5 in both yards and touchdowns. Plus, he's been good in the playoffs with 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. While Jaden Daniels, he's making his first playoff start. But I think this is going to be a good high-scoring game, but I've got the Buccaneers 31-26. For our final game in the wild card round, we have the Packers at the Eagles. So this is the rematch of the Week 1 game in Brazil, where the Eagles won that game 34-29. And I think this game should be pretty close once again. Offensively for the Packers, they're scoring 27.1 points per game, although quarterback Jordan Love is dealing with an elbow injury, but he's expected to play. And the Packers are also going to be without star receiver Christian Watson, who tore his ACL. The Packers then face an Eagles defense that is second best in the NFL, allowing just 17.8 points per game. Then offensively for the Eagles, they also have an injury to their quarterback, as Jalen Hurts has missed the last 2 games with a concussion, although he seems to be trending in the right direction as he's returned to practice. But the Eagles offense is also good at scoring 27.2 points per game, and they have an elite run game, averaging 179 rushing yards per game. They match up against the Packers defense that is good, allowing 19.9 points per game, and the Packers are the 7th best defense against the run, allowing 99 rushing yards per game. But this is a game that can definitely go either way. The Packers need to be able to contain Saquon Barkley if they want to have a chance. But with the Packers' offensive injuries, I'm going to go take the Eagles to get the win. Plus, they're home, so I'll take the Eagles by a score of 22-16. Going back over to the AFC for the divisional round, beginning with the Chargers at the Chiefs. So this will be the 3rd time these 2 teams meet this year, as the Chiefs, they've won the first 2 by a score of 17-10 and 19-17. But this should definitely be another pretty close game. Chiefs, they'll be very well rested because they rested their starters in Week 18, plus they had a bye. But the Chiefs' offense is scoring 22.6 points a game, and they face the Chargers' defense that is the best scoring defense in the NFL. Then on the flip side, the Chargers are scoring 23.6 points per game, but the Chiefs are also great defensively, allowing 19.2 points per game. But I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, very similar to both meetings between these teams so far. But I'm going to take the Chiefs to get the win. They're great in the playoffs, they always find ways to win, and I've got the Chiefs by a score of 20-14. Moving on, we have the Ravens at the Bills. This game should be a really good game. We have 2 great offenses, 2 MVP candidates at quarterback, and it should be a really good game. Now, the Ravens, they did destroy the Bills 35-10 back in Week 4, but I think this game will be much, much closer. The Bills' offense is great, scoring 30.9 points per game, which is second best in the NFL, and they face a Ravens defense that seems to be peaking at the right time as we enter the playoffs. And on the flip side, the Ravens' offense is the 3rd best scoring offense in the NFL, averaging 30.5 points per game. And they also have the league's top rushing offense, averaging 187 rushing yards per game. They match up against a Bills defense that is pretty good, allowing 21.6 points per game. And the Bills are also decent against the run, allowing 115 rushing yards per game and 4.5 yards per carry. But this is a game that can definitely go either way. I think both offenses will have good games, both quarterbacks will play well, and to me, this was the toughest game for me to predict of the entire playoffs. But I think Lamar Jackson has a good game. I like the way the Ravens defense is playing, and I'm going to take the Ravens to beat the Bills in a great game, 31-27. But this game can definitely go either way. Next game, we have the Vikings at the Lions. So we just saw this matchup in Week 18 as the Lions destroyed the Vikings 31-9, and we don't get to see it again in the divisional round. The Lions' offense is great, scoring a league best 33.2 points per game, and the Lions, they also ran the ball very effectively in that matchup against the Vikings, rushing for 178 yards. And that was without David Montgomery, and he's expected to return for the divisional round. But the Lions' offense matches up against a great Vikings defense that is 5th in the NFL, allowing 19.5 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Vikings are scoring 25.4 points per game, although they were terrible in last week's game, not scoring a touchdown. But I do think the Vikings will be better this time around, but they face a Lions defense that's pretty good, allowing 20.1 points per game. But I am going to take the Lions to get the win. They're home, I trust their offense more, and they just destroyed the Vikings. There's no chance of going the other way. So I'll take the Lions to get the win by a score of 30-20, but I wouldn't be shocked to see the Vikings with the upset win. Next game, we have the Buccaneers at the Eagles. So this is another very interesting game. The Buccaneers offense is great, scoring 29.5 points per game, which ranks 4th best in the NFL. But the Eagles defense is top 3, allowing under 18 points per game. Then on the other side, the Eagles offense is also great, as they're scoring 27.2 points per game, and they have an elite rushing game, rushing for 179 yards per game. But they don't face the Buccaneers defense that is solid, allowing 22.6 points per game, and very good against the run, allowing 97.8 rushing yards per game, which ranks 4th best in the NFL. And because of the Buccaneers' ability to stop the run, I definitely think that can make this game go either way. But I think the Buccaneers' defense just isn't good enough overall. I definitely think the Buccaneers have a chance in this game, but I just don't think their defense is just quite good enough. Eagles, they're home as well. I'll take them to move on, as I've got the Eagles beating the Buccaneers by a score of 26-21. Moving on to the conference championships, starting off in the AFC, where we have the Ravens at the Chiefs. So this is a rematch of the AFC Championship game from a year ago, although this time the Chiefs are home. But this is another very tough game to predict. The Ravens offense is great, scoring 30.5 points per game, and they're rushing for 187 yards per game and 5.8 yards per carry, both those best in the NFL. But they now face a great Chiefs defense that's allowing 19.2 points per game, and they're pretty good against the run, allowing 101 rushing yards per game and 4.1 yards per carry. Both those stats rank top 10 in the NFL. Then on the other side, the Chiefs offense is scoring 22.6 points per game, but they always seem to be better in the playoffs. And they face a Ravens defense that is allowing 21.2 points per game. Now, when the Chiefs won this game last season, a big reason why was the Ravens did not run the ball. But the Ravens, they don't have Derrick Henry, who ran for 1,921 yards and 16 touchdowns in the regular season. They have the best rushing offense in the league. I also really like how their defense is playing. This time, I think the Ravens get it done. They run the ball effectively, play well defensively, and the Ravens beat the Chiefs and advance to the Super Bowl and win by a score of 24-20. And moving on to the NFC Championship game, that is the Eagles at the Lions. So this is another good game. The Lions, if they make the NFC Championship game, it will be the first time they will ever host the NFC Championship game. But we have a really interesting matchup, as we have an elite Lions offense against an elite Eagles defense. As the Lions, they have the top scoring offense in the NFL, putting up 33.2 points per game. But the Eagles, they have the second best scoring defense, allowing just 17.8 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Eagles are averaging 27.2 points per game and rushing for 179 yards per game. Then they'll face the Lions defense that is pretty good, allowing 20.1 points a game, and the Lions defense is very good against the run, as they rank 5th, allowing 94.8 rushing yards per game. Now, this is another game that can definitely go either way, but I'm going to take the Lions. They're home. I trust their offense a little bit more. I think their defense is good enough to slow down Saquon Barkley, and I have the Lions beating the Eagles to make their first Super Bowl ever, and they win by a score of 31-24. And moving on to the Super Bowl 59, we've got the Ravens against the Lions. So this should be a great game. Both these teams are elite offensively and good defensively. Offensively for the Lions, they're putting up 33.2 points per game, and they're elite throwing the ball and running the ball, as they're throwing for 263 yards per game and rushing for 146 yards per game. And then they'll face a Ravens defense that is allowing 21.2 points per game, but they're actually the league's best rush defense, allowing 80 rushing yards a game, although they're not good against the pass, allowing 244 passing yards per game, which is second worst in the NFL. Then on the flip side, the Ravens offense is also elite, scoring 30.5 points per game, and they average 424 total yards of offense per game, which is best in the NFL. And then defensively for the Lions, they're very similar to the Ravens. They're allowing a little over 20 points per game, great against the run, not so great against the pass. But I think this will be a great game. Both these offenses very good. I think both play very well, and this will be a very high-scoring, entertaining game. But I'm going to take the Lions to get the win and win their first Super Bowl ever, and they will beat the Ravens and win their first Super Bowl in franchise history by a score of 34-31. And Jared Goff wins Super Bowl MVP. And I also added up all the points I have being scored in the playoffs. It is 618. But those are my NFL playoff predictions. We will actually be having a live watch party for every single playoff game, so be sure to subscribe and turn notifications so don't miss that. Also, be sure to check out the community tab of my channel, where you guys can vote on who you think will win the playoff games. But those are my NFL playoff predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.